don't forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack make it backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby May. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
The DA's office filed criminal charges against 4 Milwaukee men and their organization, Big Money Addicts, or BMA.
Used stolen vehicles that were typically newer models. This ensures the proper functionality and drivability. The gang was also aware that MPD policy dictates that police squads must not initiate and/or must stop their pursuit if they have no proof of a violent crime.
After just about every crash involving a police chase in Milwaukee, there's often a renewed debate about the safety of Milwaukee's pursuit policy. In the most recent case, police say it all started with a stolen vehicle. A national pursuit policy expert doesn't believe that reason alone justifies a chase. After more than a mile of chasing, Milwaukee police say officers called off their pursuit when the driver of this car drove into oncoming traffic on North 76th. The result, a head-on crash that killed the driver and severely injured people in both cars.
This is a tragic reminder of how dangerous it is for those who are in vehicles or driving vehicles recklessly, as well as for pedestrians and police officers.
Milwaukee's current police pursuit policy has been in place for more than 2 years, and it allows officers to chase for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, when the driver has committed or is about to commit a violent felony. But it also allows pursuits when reckless driving or mobile drug trafficking is involved. Lastly, the policy permits officers to chase when the driver presents an immediate threat to the safety of others. Prior to 2017, officers could only chase a car if they had probable cause the people inside were involved in a violent felony. 4 years ago, Milwaukee's Fire and Police Commission made changes to the policy to allow officers to crack down on a surge of mobile drug trafficking and reckless driving.
Is that value of that stolen vehicle, a 16-year-old who doesn't make good decisions as it is that worth a life?
Tom Gleason trains departments across the country on best practices for pursuing fleeing vehicles while weighing the risk to officers and pedestrians. He says over the past 2 decades, many departments have transitioned to only chase those believed to be involved in violent felonies, which is the opposite direction Milwaukee's police department has gone.
If it's not a forcible felony, such as an armed robbery, a murder, or something where a gun is being used, then those cases, then the best course of action with most agencies are going with now is do not pursue because of risk factors.
In 2018, the year after Milwaukee police were allowed to pursue vehicles for a variety of reasons, chases skyrocketed 155% compared to the year prior. Officer and pedestrian injuries increased with more chases, but former Chief Alfonso Morales said the policy shift also resulted in a drop in vehicle thefts and violent crime. We reached out to Milwaukee police, but a spokesperson declined our requests for an interview about its pursuit policy. Reporting outside of Milwaukee Police Department headquarters, Ben Jordan, TMJ4 News.
So drug dealing, and it's certainly evolving in Milwaukee, and law enforcement forced to evolve with it. That's one of the reasons for a little-known, little-used racketeering charge that was recently leveled against some drug dealers. Our Beverly Taylor explains.
Now, instead of having the customers come to one location, they're going to the customers. They're delivering.
Milwaukee District Attorney John Chisholm isn't talking about pizza or sub sandwiches. What's being delivered is heroin by drug dealers in stolen cars.
And tinting those car windows so it becomes very difficult for police officers to see what's inside that car.
Oftentimes a dealer with drugs and a gun in his lap. Monday, the DA's office filed criminal charges against 4 Milwaukee men and their organization, Big Money Addicts, or BMA. Rashawn Smith, Keon Lewis, David Harris, and Ariane Green Brown, the only one not in custody, face charges including racketeering, a charge usually associated with organized crime. It calls for the men to be associated in a criminal enterprise, including violence, and outline at least 3 criminal acts that exemplify the criminal activity.
We've used it on relatively rare occasions in the past. We have to seek and receive permission from the Attorney General.
The lengthy 53-page criminal complaint with 18 different charges says the gang used stolen vehicles that were typically newer models. This ensures the proper functionality and drivability. The gang was also aware that MPD policy dictates that police squads must not initiate and/or must stop their pursuit if they have no proof of a violent crime.
So if the police are onto them, what they do is they flee from the scene at a high rate.
According to the criminal complaint, defendant Rashawn Smith told investigators on an average day, his gang would make between $20,000 and $28,000. Chisholm says their operation and those like it have led to an escalation of crime in the city. Stephanie?
Beverly, thank you.
Yo, we back. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb ties. We on our way to Wisconsin with it. Milwaukee to be exact. The motherfucking north side. Gonna need the whole north side to check in on the comment box. Matter of fact, the whole Milwaukee. Y'all get down there and y'all flood that bitch. This is a Milwaukee story. Now, today, we are going to be covering 4 individuals by the name of Rashawn Smith, Keon Lewis, David Harris, and Ariane Green Brown. Now, collectively, they are known as the infamous Big Money Addicts. Now, if you're familiar with Milwaukee, you already know about them. If you're not, I'm about to educate you. Now, these 4 individuals are almost single-handedly responsible for Milwaukee changing their pursuit laws based on how they operated their business. Now, it's impossible to tell the story of the Big Money Addicts without talking about Milwaukee's pursuit policy. So in 2010, if I'm not mistaken, they changed the laws to where cops could only pursue a vehicle if they known a violent offense had occurred. And this was due in part to the year of 2010. In Milwaukee alone, I want to say it was 4 fatalities where officers were pursuing people speeding, probably in stolen vehicles. So a law was passed by then chief where he pretty much revoked any high-speed chases. Now, the members of BMA, pretty smart to the legal system, they in turn would use this to their advantage in their mobile heroin operation that they was running. And it was said to be pretty lucrative. And it was days where they could make upwards of $20,000 to $28,000 in one day. And the way they operated it was very, very unconventional because it was a gang, but it was only a gang of 4 people. So it was almost something like a small business. And they would pretty much almost take turns on separate days and have a different person working that day. But that's not all that they did to thwart law enforcement. And it was said that it was a back and forth battle between MPD, Milwaukee Police Department, and BMA, the Big Money Addicts, that would go so far where prosecutors would ask a judge to allow them to freeze a phone number for a period of time, rendering the line unable to send or receive calls or text messages. In turn, authorities would say that the addicts would realize that the number is dead, it loses its value, and dealers lose the stream of income. So according to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, the first case in which that law was used in Wisconsin and possibly the nation was filed when it was used against the Big Money Addicts. I seen where they initially got on the police's radar where they were known as the Violent Tent Crew or the Tent Crew because they would tent out stolen vehicles. So they had like an organization where they were kind of plugged in with car thieves, and they would somehow purchase these vehicles from the car thieves, tent out the windows, and use those as mobile drug selling hubs. And when that law was passed in 2010, the pursuit law, what they would do is they would be pulled over. They would wait till the officer gets out his car to come approach to their vehicle. And as he was doing that, they would speed off. The officers, having no knowledge of a violent crime, would have to let them go. Now, it would change just like it always does for everybody when violence would occur on the radar for the big money addicts. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the gang was said to have formed in around 2015, and the leaders were Rashawn Smith and Kawan Lewis, according to court documents. And David Harris and Aaron Green Brown would come on later. It was said that to be part of the group, you had to have an established cell phone and cell phone numbers. It said that the group was making upwards of 80 drug deals a day. It said they had business cards advertising the business, using businesses like 24-hour tow service or 24-hour auto repair. In turn, when customers contacted that number, they had a drive-through or delivery service rivaling what we have like Uber Eats today. Now, the operation seemed to go fine and dandy for the group for several years, but it would be an incident that occurred in 2011 that would pretty much be their downfall, and it didn't have anything to do with drugs. Now, they're going to say in that year of 2011, Kewan Lewis was involved in a break-in where two 42-inch TVs were stolen, and he was subsequently identified by a guy by the name of Deontay Page. Now, that's very important because it would be years later, and after several encounters, it would be the one in 2015 at a local store in the area called the Locust Quick Mart, where Deontay would encounter Kawan, and pretty much shots would end up being fired. Now, Deontay Page would escape with his life, and he would end up being wounded in his hip. But it would subsequently be this act that would bring down the Big Money Addict organization. And that trial is where it's going to all fall down, because Kewan Lewis would admit to authorities that him and Smith personally sold more than 1 million grams of heroin, charging $150 to $300 a gram. He said Green, Brown, and Harris sold less, about 500 grams each. Now, they're going to say the founders of the BMA group agreed to provide the fundamentals to a successful and lucrative business. These fundamentals include customer satisfaction, accessibility, mobility, comparable heroin prices, and the recruitment of new customers. Now, the group also branded itself, getting tattoos marking their involvement with the gang. One is a heroin syringe with a $50 bill inside of that syringe pointing at a vein where the tattoo was placed. Lewis will also testify that fleeing the police was part of the plan, saying that the crew used car stealing crews out of Illinois to get vehicles. He admitted that he himself had been involved in at least 8 to 10 high-speed chases with the Milwaukee Police Department. That was not all he said, as him and Rashawn Smith would go on to testify against David Harris, bringing down the entire organization. I seen that Aaron Green Brown was on the lam for a little while, but they would end up catching up with him and pretty much locking up the crews and changing the way that drugs was moved and sold in the city of Milwaukee. Now, if y'all was in Milwaukee at this time, I definitely need y'all in the comment box to let us know if y'all heard about the Big Money Addicts, or is this something that the government would label them. They said that the name came from a Lil Wayne song, but I want to know deeper than that, especially if you was on that north side. They said it was a lot of copycats to this gang with that pursuit law, but I'm going to say they were solely responsible for Milwaukee changing that law back to where you can pursue a vehicle if you think they're involved with drug trafficking, a violent offense, and I want to say it's 2 or 3 other categories. Now, y'all make sure y'all follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, POP_A_LOT. Y'all hit the bell right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Shout out to Milwaukee. Y'all get in the comment box. Y'all let me know who we need to cover in the city, what part of the city we ain't been to. Matter of fact, if you listening to this video and you got a suggestion, I need y'all to drop it below so I can check them out. Y'all can comment below. Y'all can direct message me. Y'all can email me. Y'all can CC me. Y'all can text me. Y'all can call me. Y'all can stop me in the Matter of fact, y'all pull up to the spot. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Popalot. Mobb, Tice.